As we look ahead to the 2021 Carabao Cup Final, we're delighted to be joined by former Tottenham Hotspur goalkeeper and League Cup winner with Spurs back in 2008, Paul Robinson. Paul, it's great to have you with us to chat all things Carabao Cup, in particular Tottenham. One of your former clubs, they're in a League Cup Final. It's a chance of silverware under Jose Mourinho. It's going to be a great occasion for the club, isn't it?
It's fantastic for the club. It's that long ago since the last one, and anything I had my hands on the trophy, so that shows you how long ago it was. Back in 2008, and it's been far too long for a club like Spurs, a club that have grown so much and they've come such a distance under Pochettino firstly, and now under Jose. Jose's obviously been brought in for a reason. We talk all the time. He's a born winner. He's brought to win things, and he's starting to look like he's going to do that. I mean, I'm really excited with the squad that he amassed in the summer, with the signings that he made in the summer. And the way that they've attacked this Premier League season. Yes, they've still got flaws. They struggle to close games out when they're ahead in games. But I think this is the first real opportunity from Spurs fans' point of view and from the chairman and inside the club. You can see that the club can win something this season. And with the Carabao Cup, it's going to be the first opportunity of the season to win something.
I was going to say, there is a lot of talk about Spurs winning a trophy. As you said, the last trophy was in 2008 when you were playing for the club. Yes, that's a long time ago, and it's a long time to go without silverware for a club of their size. Just how big a moment is this for the football club?
Yeah, it's huge because we're not winning a trophy for such a long time. It does become a burden. It does become a weight around the players' neck, the supporters' necks. And it's difficult to get out of a rut like that. There's not much silverware available. So if you're not challenging for the league on a regular basis, then you're looking at European competitions and then 2 domestic trophies. When this season, as I say, spoke to you before about the squad that he's amassed, the quality that he's got. They were fortunate they got a bye in the first round against Leyton Orient this year with the COVID restrictions and everything else. And you kind of think, well, is this going to be Spurs' year? And then they played Chelsea in the same week as that they had to qualify for Europa League. And Jose said, look, I'm not going to prioritise the League Cup. Europe's my priority. Sure enough, they put a strong side out against Chelsea, beat Chelsea and qualified for Europe. So that gave you a little insight if there was ever any doubt that Jose wants to compete on all fronts this season. And he knows the squad that he's got and he wants to win a trophy. And this being his easiest and quickest option, if you like. They've had 3 games now and they're at Wembley in a cup final. So it's a really big opportunity for them to finally get their hands on that piece of silverware that's eluded them for so long.
I was going to say, I'm going to come on to Spurs this season in just a moment, but you mentioned Jose Mourinho there. He was a huge appointment for the club, wasn't he? And he's got such a winning mentality. He knows how to win trophies. Just how big of an impact do you think he's had on this squad?
I do think he's had a huge impact, and I think the chairman was right to give him time and give him a couple of transfer windows. He's got to give the chairman a lot of credit as well, because he's backed him financially in the transfer windows again. He's allowed him to bring in the players that he's wanted to bring in. He's backed him hugely with Gareth Bale. He's brought another winner into the dressing room, a serial winner. They've got like Hugo Lloris, a World Cup winner, Gareth Bale, who's a serial winner, the manager, who's a born winner. And there was a lot of eyebrows raised when Pochettino left, mine included. And then Jose came in, and the question you asked is, what do you think he's going to bring to Spurs? What's he been brought in for? And my initial reaction was, if we get the Jose that was at Chelsea the first time round, when he had a great rapport with his players, he had a great relationship with his players, he seemed to be laughing, bubbly, winning trophies. And if we get that Jose, rather than the one that was at Manchester United, who looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and Spurs certainly have got the Jose. He seems to be rejuvenated, reinvigorated, seems to have a great relationship with his players. He seems to be happy with his squad, happy with his surroundings. And he just looks a really good fit at the moment. And I think the icing on the cake obviously would be some silverware this season. Yeah, but they are competing on all 4 fronts.
So you mentioned there, obviously, the impact of Jose, but also the transfers and the players they've brought in. What are your thoughts on Spurs this season? How would you assess the season so far?
I think they've left a lot of points out there. I think there's a lot of points that they could have gained. I think they've been guilty of not closing games out at times when they've dominated games. Crystal Palace away, a perfect example. They dominated the game and then ended up only drawing. And then they were guilty of that only a few weeks later, doing exactly the same thing against Wolves. But after the Wolves game, they played Leeds at home, and they handled the Leeds defence the best that I've seen anyone do in the Premier League this season. So defensively, they handled Leeds the best I've seen anyone do this season. And they went 1-0 up, and then they went on to close the game out 2 or 3-0 against what could have been a very difficult side for them. I think his recruitment in the summer was outstanding. I think Pierre Højbjerg has been the signing of the season for me. I think he was the most, he's the underrated player of the season so far. I don't think many fans were that excited when he came in initially, but you see what he does, and you see how pivotal and key he is to everything that Mourinho does. Whether he plays a back three, a back four, Pierre Højbjerg always plays. We've seen the strength of the squad that he's got. I mean, this weekend just gone, he's left the likes of Dele Alli and Harry Winks at home, couldn't even make the squad. Yet Pierre Højbjerg plays every week in and week out. So that shows you, what he means to Jose and his formation and the way that the team play.
And just looking at the Premier League as well, it's so tight this season, isn't it? I'm not sure it's been this close for a while, but Spurs are right up there competing at the top, which you'd argue is where they should be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see them actually, making a realistic title challenge. And they have got the squad and the capability of doing that. They've got the ability now to put 2 11s out. And Jose wants to win something. He's been brought here to win something. He's competing in Europe. He's competing in the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and the Premier League. And they've got 4 realistic chances of winning silverware. To see them competing at the top end of the league again and being realistic title challenges is fantastic. And it's where they want to be and where they need to be. And as I say, the squad that they've amassed and the quality of players that they've got, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Gareth Bale going on for the second half of the season. They've kind of nursed him through with his injuries, and he's played here and there. He's not played regularly, but a fully fit Gareth Bale could be like a new signing between now and the end of the season. So I think the tide really has changed at Spurs. The strength and depth they've got, the manager they've got a world-class stadium, they've got a world-class training ground. Everything at the moment is pointing in the right positive direction for Spurs. It's just getting those elusive trophies back into the trophy cabinet.
And obviously, you mentioned Højbjerg, and you mentioned the impact that fit Gareth Bale could have. But obviously, 2 players who have made the headlines every week are Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. They've, if they stay fit, they're a real problem, aren't they, for any opposition? And they've just been unstoppable so far this season.
They've formed a phenomenal, almost telepathic relationship with one another. You're almost guaranteed that one will score and the other one will get an assist at the moment. I think, you got to give Harry Kane a lot of credit for the way that he's developed and adapted his game, even at the stage of his career now. I think you're seeing him drop deeper. You're seeing him create more assists. You're seeing him be more creative into midfield, which allows others to then run on in behind him, the likes of Son, Bergwijn, Moura, Bale if he plays. The attacking prowess that they've got in that final third of the field is one, it's one of the world's best that they've got in the final third. And a lot of that is down to Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. I think Son, the way that he's developed into the world-class player that he is since he came to Spurs, let's not forget he wasn't always the first name on the team sheet. He didn't play regularly, but the understanding that these 2 players have got with each other now, they seem to know each other's runs, they know each other's game inside out, and to be involved in as many goals as they have with one another this season, that's going to be a huge asset for Spurs going forward.
And just looking ahead to the Carabao Cup Final then in April, obviously Manchester City are their opponents on the day. They've won the competition the last 3 years in a row, looking to make it 4. It's clearly a trophy that's important to Pep Guardiola. If you're in this Spurs side, how do you get past a side like Manchester City?
Well, I think Spurs are now, they're on an even keel. They're competing at the top of the Premier League with the likes of Manchester City. I think this is the best final that we're going to see for a long time. It's really one that's really exciting to look forward to. 2 teams that will go forward, that will try and score goals. And as you say, Pep's got a fantastic record in this competition. It shows you how seriously that he takes this competition. These 3 wins, this would potentially be his 4th. But we're going to see 2 teams who are at the top of the Premier League, and it's without sitting on the fence. Either could win on the day. It just depends on who turns up on the day and who plays the best. You're gonna look at 2 of the best teams in the Premier League, potentially 2 of the best teams in Europe going forward. And it's no longer a competition that's not looked favourably on by managers. You look at the semi-finals, the quarter-finals that we've had in the last 3, 4, or 5 seasons. The status of this competition has regained what it used to be. The importance of this competition has been when you look at the stature of the teams that are in the semi-finals and finals. But it's really going to be difficult to separate the 2 teams. I think it's all going to be about who defends the better out of the 2. But both have got attacking qualities. We know they have. Manchester City with the resurgence of John Stones and their ability to keep clean sheets and the way that they're performing in the league, it's going to be a really difficult one for Spurs. It's going to be a very difficult game. De Bruyne, as we know, City have struggled to score goals this season, but his form's been outstanding. So it's going to be literally who turns up on the day and who performs well on the day. Heart and head, if you had to push me for a prediction, I'd go with heart rather than head, and I'd go for a Spurs win on the day.
And obviously, you know, it was Pep's first trophy in English football. He's won it the last 3 years. But obviously, you know, Jose Mourinho has won the competition 4 times himself as a manager, and he's looking for number 5. And if he does that, he will become the most successful manager in the competition's history. We are going to see 2 of the best managers in world football go head to head on the day, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. 2 of the, you know, as you say, 2 of the world's best managers, but 2 of the most successful managers in English football as well. But believe me, it's going to be 2 managers who will be absolutely desperate to add another trophy to the silverware. Some silverware to their trophy cabinet. But I think you can't play it down. You can't say it means more to one manager than the other. But I think it's of more importance to Tottenham to win this trophy. And I think Jose will probably want this just a little bit more than Pep does when the final comes around in April.
And just on the Carabao Cup, obviously traditionally it's the final is played in February. We know this year it might be behind closed doors, so it might be a slightly different experience. But as a competition and as a trophy, for a club and for you as players, just how important is it? Because it's the first trophy of the season that's available to win. And how important and how much of an impact can that have on you as players going into the final part of the season?
Yeah, I think for us, certainly the time when we won it in 2008, we were in a real transitional period at Spurs. We went into the finals huge underdogs. We just recently got a new manager, Juan de Ramos. Love him or loathe him. Some of us didn't like him. Some of us got on with him. And at that point, when we went into the final, we were 14th. The likes of Portsmouth, Fulham, and Reading were above us in the Premier League, and it was a difficult season for us. But that win obviously catapulted us on and gave us the ability to perform in the league and take a lot of confidence into the league from there. This season's a little bit more difficult and a bit more different, as we well know, with the fixture congestion. Finals normally in February, but it's now been knocked back to April. Hopefully by then, and I think it's very optimistic, but I'd like to think we might have some supporters in the stadium, but you just don't know. But it's a great opportunity to get some silverware early on the board in the season, and then take that and use it into whatever else you to put into confidence wise for whatever else you're competing for towards the end of the season.
And just looking back to your time at Spurs, I know you made more than 130 appearances for the club. You enjoyed some special times there, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I played some of my best football at Spurs. I think it was probably the happiest time of my career there. Spoke about Juan de Ramos coming in there, and he was a manager that he had preconceived ideas of me when he came in a similar way to Pep Guardiola did with Joe Hart at Manchester City. I think, for whatever reason, I wasn't for him, and he wasn't for me, and I fast became aware of that very quickly. And before that Carabao Cup, he started leaving me out, and then in and out of the team, and that's when kind of the writing's on the wall with a manager. But in hindsight, he potentially could have stuck around because he didn't last very long. And Harry Redknapp's a manager that I would have loved to have played for. But that was towards the end of my career. But like the majority of my career at Spurs was absolutely fantastic. As I say, I was established myself as England's number 1 there. The rapport that I had that I still have to this day with the Spurs supporters. And as I say, some of, if not the best football of my career, without a shadow of a doubt, I played at White Hart Lane.
I just want to talk about that League Cup victory in 2008. As we've said, it was the last time Spurs won a trophy. You were part of the side that overcame Chelsea that day. You came from behind to win. It was the first final at the new Wembley, I think. There was 87,000 fans there. Just a fantastic day. What are your memories from that occasion?
It was an incredible occasion for us, as you say. We were huge underdogs at the time. We were struggling in the league, 14th in the league. Juan de Ramos had just come in, different ways of doing things. We were adapting to his different methods, and it was quite stringent, quite regimented. Certainly, what we weren't used to as English players, and he was asking different things of us. But one thing that I do remember of us, completely out of character for the manager, he took us away to the Grove Hotel in London 2 days before the final, and it was more like a stag do rather than preparing for a final. I mean, there was no drinking or anything like that involved. But it was like we were going on these dune buggy rides. They had huge inflatables. There was archery. There was like team bonding and team building exercises. So we did that for a day. We were just told to meet at the training ground with old clothes and, you know, a couple of overnight bags, and then your stuff ready for the final. So none of us really knew what was going on. It was completely out of character for the manager, which I think knocked us all out a little bit and took our mind away from the final, which, you know, looking back was probably a masterstroke from him. I mean, I remember the night before the final, we had dinner all together and we had a team meeting as usual. And then he opened up next door and there was one of those like fake casinos that was there, you know, with the fake money that you play with. And he just said, look, you can have a couple of hours in the casino, lads, before you go to bed. And the lads were like, what, is this a test? Are we allowed to do this? Is this right? Because it was just so out of character by the manager. But he took us away for those 2 days and took our focus off the game a little bit. But we, you know, with the meetings and everything else, we still channeled our attentions towards the game. And I think that probably went a long way to helping our mentality and mindset towards winning that final.
That's incredible, isn't it? You don't often hear stories like that. And obviously, in hindsight, you won, so you'd say that was a great thing to do. But did that just help you relax as players? Was that the intention?
I think so. I think that was obviously what the manager was looking to do, was to take our focus off the final and not to obsess for, 24, 48 hours before the game. And, you know, just to bring us together a little bit. It was a typical team building thing that you do, and I say on like a stag do. You know, there was huge go-karts, dune buggies, archery, all kinds of different events where you had to work in teams. And as I say, then the casino on the night before the game, where you'd normally probably go to bed at, 8, 9 o'clock, and you'd be in your room for a while thinking about the game. He actually kept us all together and kept us all in the room having fun and having a laugh together, which in hindsight, it had the desired effect.
And obviously on the day itself, Chelsea, with your opponents, not only London rivals, but the team they had on the day as well, the likes of Frank Lampard, John Terry, Didier Drogba, Nicolas Anelka. It was quite a special Chelsea side. So to overcome them must have made it even more special. Yeah,
it was. We, as I say, in the game, went into the game as underdogs. They were strong favourites. They had a very, very strong side. And they went 1-0 up very early on in the game. Didier Drogba scored a free kick, which I was out of position and out of sight for. But I think we battled back into the game. We got a penalty from memory. I think it was Dimitar Berbatov who ended up scoring the penalty. And then the longer the game went, we seemed to grow into ourselves, and it went to extra time. And then we got the ball in the box, and I think Petr Cech punched the ball off Jonathan Woodgate's head. I think it's one of the luckiest goals that Woody will ever score. And then it was from that point on, it was a case for us of just holding on, which we managed to do.
And am I right in saying that it was your first major trophy of your career?
Only, yeah, my only major trophy of my career.
Must make the competition fairly special then.
It's very special for me, because the old cliche of, as a kid, you dream of winning the FA Cup final, climbing the stairs at Wembley. I was fortunate to play in the first international at Wembley against Brazil when the new stadium was opened. And I was fortunate to play in the first cup final and to be able to climb those stairs as a winner. And, it's an ambition as a kid. It's something you always wanted to do. And it's the oldest cliche in football, but you're living out your childhood dream to play at the new Wembley Stadium and to climb those stairs and lift the trophy as a winner. There's nothing better, no better feeling.
And there were some great players in that Spurs side as well. You got the likes of Jermaine Genius, Robbie Keane, Dimitar Berbatov, Ledley King, went on to become sort of legends of the club, didn't they? Who did you particularly enjoy playing with in that Spurs era?
Ledley King was one of my favourites. I used to, obviously, we played very closely together. He either in centre back or in holding midfield. And he's a player that I've played through. Ledley's the same age as me. We've played through like the England youth ranks and the under 19s and 21s together. And he's a player that I've grown up with and got to know, obviously, through my life very, very well. And he was just reliable, dependent, one of the best centre backs, if not the best centre back I've played with. A lot's been documented about his injuries and whether if he could have stayed injury free, what could he have gone on to achieve. I think it's a lot of that is harsh with Ledley, because to say that he only used to train on a Friday, he never used to just train on a Friday. He'd train all week, but he'd train how he could train. So, the sports science and, the way that players are monitored these days, Ledley would train to his own level of, in the gym, maybe Monday, Tuesday. He could come out on the grass on a Wednesday, Thursday, and then do the set plays on a Friday. So I think to label that he never used to train against him was very harsh. And I think he's one of the best players that Spurs have had in a long time. And I thoroughly enjoyed playing with him.
And I think, am I right in saying that in 2003, you actually scored a goal in the League Cup for Leeds United against Swindon Town.
Yeah, I scored a header for Leeds against Swindon. We were losing, I think it was 1-0 or 2-1 at the time. Again, we were struggling under Peter Reid at the time. We were facing relegation in the face. And we were 2-1 down, I think it was. It was either 2-1 or 1-0 down. And I just went up in injury time for a header. And it was a complete Roy of the Rovers moment for me. Something you dream of. And, you never ever think it's going to happen. I remember it very vividly to this day. Went up for the first corner and the lads took a short corner and it went out for another corner. And I thought, I've come all the way up here. I'm not running back now. So I stayed up for the second corner. Unfortunately enough, got my head on it, ended up saving a couple of penalties and we won the game. But yeah, it's a real comic strip, Roy of the Rovers type night that was for me.
Finally, I know you touched on it earlier, but just get your predictions for the Carabao Cup Final, Spurs or Manchester City?
It's going to be a really difficult one to predict. You've got two of the top teams in the country going head to head. Both managers will be desperate to win this trophy, and it all depends on who performs on the day. I think Spurs potentially a few weeks ago you'd have looked at them and gone potentially defensively stronger. But since John Stones has come back into the team, they've started keeping clean sheets. Manchester City, and they're the informed team in the country at the moment and looking to get back on top of the Premier League. I think it's going to be a fantastic spectacle. It's a really difficult one to call, but I'm going to go with heart over head, and I'm going to go for a very, very narrow Spurs win.